Welcome back to Esther's Breeze, where we sit back, chat, and shoot the breeze. Thank you all so much for joining us. Your constant love and support is so appreciated. I'd like to shout out a big thank you to PAX Management, a huge thank you to publicist extraordinaire Steve Joyner, to my mentor and good friend, Mr. D'Alessio, and to my partner in crime and my background techie, Mr. Fernando Renzo. Hey, thank you for joining us. So, Esther's Breeze is available on the Esther's Breeze YouTube channel, on Bobby Short Short's YouTube channel, and on Esther Brzezinski's Facebook page. The audio then gets extracted, uploaded to all audio streaming platforms. So tonight's guest, I'm so excited for you guys to meet him. He is John Moyer. On this episode, we are having John Moyer as our guest. He is a professional hypnotist who has performed his stage hypnosis show around the United States and for corporate, university, public, and private events. He's also performed around the world as a guest entertainer for Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, a graduate of film school. John's combined his production skills with hypnosis to create a YouTube channel with over 200,000 subscribers, focused on hypnosis and meditation content, showing people how to harness the power of their minds. Here is
hypnotized like all of you are right now. If any of you in your entire lives have ever lied to get out of a date, you'll sleep.
Let's bring. Hey, John.
Hello,
How are
Esther.
you?
I am well and wonderful and good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. That little clip is so hilarious.
Yeah. It's really interesting because if you've ever seen a stage hypnosis show,
Yes, I
there's
have.
a lot of things where they, you would just tell them to, okay, sleep. And I just kind of came up with this idea that, you throw something out there. If you've done this, then you'll sleep. And it seems to resonate with audiences. And I'll do that one where it's like lie to get out of a date. If I'm doing a college school, it's like if you've ever cheated on your homework.
Right.
If I'm doing a corporate event, if you've ever faked being sick to get out of going to work, it never fails.
No, it seems to work, and it seems to really resonate with the audience and to the performers who are on the stage with you. I call them performers, but they're actually just part of the public. So I know that you originally from New Jersey, then you went to Salt Lake City, Utah, and you went to the University of BYU, which is Brigham Young University.
Brigham Young University, that is correct.
Right.
Yes.
And so you received a BA in theater and film, and afterwards you began a career as a stand-up comic.
Yeah, so going to school for, theater and film, and I got a screenwriting emphasis, and there was a comedy club in Provo, Utah. I guess most people don't think of Provo, Utah as a really funny place.
No, not really.
It's funny in its own way. And I started doing stand-up comedy. I think it was probably my junior year, and stand-up comedy and filmmaking, the entertainment industry, it all kind of seemed like it was in the kind of the same area. So I graduated from film school, and the last semester, a lot of people maybe they're applying for jobs, they're getting job placement, they're going on doing big things with their
Right.
Their career, and I was sending out VHS tapes, and resumes to all these different comedy clubs to just start booking the summer after I graduated. And yeah, I graduated, and the next week I got to be an opening act at the Improv when it was up in Seattle, and I just wound up going on the road doing stand-up comedy, and it was quite a fun experience that I just I loved the experience. And then of course from that, taking the comedy chops that I had developed, I wrote a few independent screenplays that
Right.
that got produced, and continued to do stand-up comedy. And through all of that, a very interesting journey, wound up in a place that I never expected, but a place that I love is, being able to, do hypnosis. Because I always had that passion for the live events, the live audiences, but then taking my filmmaking skills, my writing skills, and be able to create hypnotic content on YouTube.
So, what inspired you to make that transition from stand-up comic to stage hypnotist? Because that is quite a transition, though there is a similarity in both.
My life was completely dysfunctional, and I
Okay.
found myself in a very, very dark place. See, the thing is when you're learning screenwriting, they teach you that all drama is conflict, right? That's
Right.
what's going to make a story interesting. There's not going to be any home alone if the kid's not left home alone and there's not bad guys trying to break into the house. So I kind of took that template and applied it to comedy in my own life, where I was like, the more dysfunction and the more drama that was in my personal life, that was fodder for what I could rant about on stage. And
Of course.
I could make people laugh on stage, but it was like the sad clown, behind the scenes. I was extremely unhappy. I had gone through a divorce. Had two young kids, dating all of the wrong dysfunctional women and relationships. And I just got to that point where I'm looking around going, is this what it's all about? I'm not happy, and something has to change. And I realized that if you can't change what's out here expecting that to change what's in here. So I worked on myself, and then when I worked on myself, it was like all of these other amazing things that I could have never imagined began to show up in my life. And as I went in that direction, and I had less dysfunction in my life and eliminated dysfunction in my life, I felt like, man, I've got nothing to make fun of because I'm happy. So, follow the bliss and follow the joy, and that's what I continued to do. And once I started doing that, I mean, just everything took off. It was an amazing experience for me. I went from driving 12 hours to do some hell bar,
Right.
in Montana someplace, getting put up at the the Motel 6 because that was the cheapest motel for the club to be able to foot the bill for, to being flown first class to do high-end corporate events, and then of course performing on Royal Caribbean Cruise Line and getting to go around the world. It was, and then from that, all of that then led into what I was able to create with my YouTube channel. So
That's a huge contrast. So, what attracted you to hypnosis exactly? Were you watching other hypnotists perform on stage, or was it something, were you inspired
well,
in another
it,
way?
what happened? Well, first of all, when it comes to stand-up comedians, there's always this kind of resentment and negativity towards the hypnotists, because stand-up comics are like, we're artists, we're writing all this original material, and you're just kind of getting up and you're a hack because you're relying on gimmicks and all these other people. And the thing that would really frustrate a comedian is, I can tell you how many times you might be performing in a club and the audiences are like half full or 3/4 full or whatever it is, and manager would be like, man, we had the hypnotist here last week and we sold out every show. In fact, we had to add 2 more shows. And you're just like, like there was this resentment for that. And what had happened for me was that I was booked to perform in an event. It was, this series of things that were going on all day at this event. So I was performing stand-up comedy, and the venue that I was in, was like maybe half full, 3/4 full. It was okay. What I didn't realize was that immediately after my performance, they had a stage hypnotist. And I had to stick around because I had another show to do later. But I stuck around, watched the hypnosis show, and I mean, it was standing room only for the hypnotist. And not only that, when he called for volunteers, people rushed the stage. They got hypnotized. It was fun and funny and entertaining. And then, of course, after the fact, the hypnotist had, CDs that he would sell of
Right,
stuff,
the
smoking,
merch.
weight losses, the merch, right? And everybody's lining up, throwing money hand over fist to buy the merch. And that was, of course, at the point where I'm like, I knew something needed to change. And I looked at that and went, I can do that. I had the stage presence. I could
Right.
comfortable. I just, of course, needed to learn how to hypnotize people. That small little,
Just a little detail.
just a little detail, which fortunately I was able to do. I went through, training for that. The advantage that I had though is because, having 20 plus years of stand-up comedy experience at that point, I was able to go back to the bookers and the managers and the agents and the event planners and all those people that I had worked with and said, guess what? I'm doing this now. And I was able to just start working right away, where a lot of people that are just getting into hypnosis are trying to figure out how to get a gig, or they're making their own gigs, booking their own venues or whatever. And within a very short time, just within a couple of years, it just exploded for me. And not only that, the things that I was learning about the power of the mind were resonating within my own life. I was couldn't just hypnotize people on stage. I was able to experience that myself and take that dysfunctional programming out of my mind and input some more positive, productive programming that it worked out.
That's amazing. I'm curious, how does one get certified as a hypnotist?
So when I went through for the stage hypnosis training, there's no certification, for that. What I did later on, though, is to build upon that. I went through a certification course with the National Guild of Hypnotists, and that was about 100 hours of classroom study, and I think there was like 20 or 30 hours of outside hypnosis experience, which of course I was performing at the same time. So, I was getting a lot of that. So I went through that process to get certified with the National Guild of Hypnotists, and I did it more so just to be able to do that for me and say I could have a nice, fancy certificate hanging,
Right.
On the wall. But so it was really just kind of a personal quest for me to be able to say, hey, I've done that. But it was a beneficial experience because it all applies to everything that I know about hypnosis.
So I'm curious, are there some people who are more receptive to being hypnotized than others? And are there some people who just cannot get hypnotized at all?
And that's a very good question. The fact of the matter is that we all have the ability to be hypnotized within us because we all go through hypnosis every single day. It's actually a natural operational state of the human mind. So the examples that I use, it's like when you're watching TV, and you're so fixated on what's happening, or you're reading a book, you're completely oblivious to, what's happening around you, or like trying to talk to my kids when they're staring at their phone screen, that sort of thing. Or even, like when you're driving down the road and it's like you're lost in thought, and then suddenly you pull up in front of your driveway and you're like, oh, I'm here. So we go through that every single time. You actually pass through hypnosis to go to sleep. Now, intentionally triggering that state is an entirely different thing in general. It is something, though, that, for some people, I've had people that are like, I've never been hypnotized in my life. And of course, they get hypnotized on stage. And if it's something that you work at and then you practice, because there was a time that I never thought I could ever be hypnotized. And when I committed to doing it and learning it, it's just like working a muscle, going to the gym. You're building it up. And then, so now for me, when I sit down on my meditation cushion, I get in the lotus position, it's like my mind goes, oh, this is what this means. And it automatically takes us, down into that state. Now, whether or not somebody can be hypnotized or not, there's a lot of factors there, because you have people that are coming up on stage that are willing participants on stage. And, sometimes people might be in their head, I'm trying too hard, or there's other people watching me. So they may not be able to have that experience on stage. The nice thing about doing, me like having a hypnosis program on YouTube, somebody's in the comfort of their own home. They don't have to go anywhere. There's no pressure. It's just them. And that can relax them more and open them up more to the ability to be hypnotized.
So you mentioned your YouTube channel. I checked it out. It's an amazing channel, and you have, I think there's like over 85. Oh yeah, I think that was one of your more recent posts. So as you guys can see, it is, yes, in fact, 8 hours long. So you have some of your content actually is 8 hours long.
In fact, most of the content is,
most of it is. I saw you had like over 80 posts, and you play the first 3 minutes, you play sort of a visual, and then you leave the balance black. And this, I guess, allows the viewer to actually sleep.
Yeah, what kind of the way that why I wound up having 8-hour programs is because of the fact that when I started my YouTube channel, um, I had well, what was interesting is that I didn't intend to be a YouTube creator. I put some
Right.
of my digital content on there thinking that if somebody heard it on YouTube, maybe they'd want to go to my website and they'd buy the digital copy. And I wasn't really keeping track of anything on YouTube. I wasn't really paying attention to it. I just put stuff on there and walk away, never check. And then I realized that I had a program for sleep that took off. And so YouTube is all about finding content that's very specific to people. So apparently my channel was geared specifically towards people that were interested in listening to something as they fell asleep. And not only listening to something as they fell asleep, for people that are interested in having something continually play in the background while they sleep. So they're able to access, they're able to relax and access those alpha and theta brainwave states before they drift off to sleep. So they're getting the benefit from accessing the subconscious mind, but then at the same time they take comfort and are able to relax and sleep through the night when there's something playing there. So that's kind of what my content all became about. People were interested in meditation or hypnosis content that they could listen to fall asleep and have play all night. So that's kind of how that happened.
And they are very engaged, because I started reading some of the comments and they love it. They absolutely love it. They want more. They're even giving you suggestions of some other things they're looking for, and or different sounds that they'd be interested in. And it's quite amazing. And I don't know, I'm not going to ask you exactly how you do it, because I am a voiceover artist myself. And so I was just thinking, so obviously this is not 8 hours of narration. There must be like a loop of some sort. Just curious how it's done.
I've done it anywhere where it's like it could be 45 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes, 90 minutes, an hour. That is actually, the original content that speaks to. And then what I do with some of the programs is that's then just looped, for the 8 hours. A lot of people are into affirmations, so a lot of it will be the hypnotic body, and then there's affirmations for the remainder of the time. So that's what it is. I've had a few people go, man, it's amazing that you just talk like that for 8 hours. And no, I'm not talking like that for 8 hours. But and of course, like I said, it was all about dialing something down to a specific niche. And of course, I would like to be able to create content that's not necessarily all 8 hours long. So I'm in the process of putting material together for a second channel that I can have like 20-minute meditations, 30-minute meditations.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what other platforms are you on? I know that you're on Instagram as well.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube's my primary focus. I've got stuff on Spotify, Apple Music, the places that that stream. The thing about YouTube is YouTube allows me to do that 8-hour content, where some of the other platforms,
that's true,
they want it to be capped at like an hour or or something like that. But also I'll have shorter stuff that's out there that people can listen to on Spotify or Apple Music and those places.
So I'm curious, the power of suggestion, because that's basically what it is. The power of suggestion while you're sleeping. Obviously, it's through your subconscious. What is the process? How does that work?
The way I explain it is, if you look at the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, there's kind of a barrier between those two things, and it's called the critical faculty. And it's kind of a firewall that protects the subconscious mind. Excuse me, because the subconscious mind is essentially where our programming is. It's our entire operating system. So the analogy that I use is, if you think of the critical faculty as the bouncer in front of the nightclub with a red velvet rope who determines who gets into the club and who doesn't get into the club. So what's happening with hypnosis is you're basically distracting the bouncer with the red velvet rope, and you're sneaking people into the club, or in this case, the subconscious mind, sneaking that information in, or those suggestions into the subconscious mind where it'll pick up on it.
That's so interesting. Many, many years ago, I went to a hypnotist to help me with my migraines. I've been a migraine sufferer since I was 26. And then he gave me some tapes to take home and to do some self-hypnosis. And interestingly enough, I was incredibly susceptible,
Yeah.
like crazy susceptible, to the point that he brought in other clients to watch me, like I guess to say, "Hey, look how good I am. Look what I do." But no, he was PhD psychiatrist as well, and no, he was quite world renowned. And but I have to say that I know from personal experience that it does in fact work. So
Yeah.
I'm
And
I'm a believer, and I know
and
that you can do the self hypnosis as well. Yes, go
and
on.
then you said, like, you're also a voiceover artist too, right?
Yes,
So you're
yes,
kind of in that. So, being in that realm, whether you want to consider it the entertainment,
yeah.
industry, where you're kind of thinking with your imagination, kind of outside the box, where that I find that really is a beneficial thing to people. And the thing
Hmm.
about hypnosis is, the misconceptions is, it's not a one size fits all. Not everyone is going to have the exact same reaction, the exact same response. And of course, now the interesting thing is that correlated with hypnosis, the more receptive somebody is to hypnosis is actually correlated with their IQ.
Hmm.
So the higher somebody's IQ, the more receptive that they can be for hypnosis. That's why, and I'll joke with audiences, and I'll tell them that. So,
Oh, you will?
and I make the joke that, like, you always get these, like, the alpha male that comes up and goes, I can't be hypnotized, like they're bragging, like they're proud. And I'll be
Right.
like, thank you for admitting you have a low IQ, because
That's right. You
I
turned it
appreciate that.
around on them.
Yeah,
It's true, but it makes sense. It makes
yeah,
sense.
and because it's about, the person's ability to just, maybe focus and concentrate. And so, I could have 20 people on stage, and I've had times where it's like you keep all 20 people. I have times where maybe I'm only keeping, 10 people or 12 people, whatever the case may be, because obviously not everybody responds. But then, even out of the group that is hypnotized, you're going to have individuals that stand out, more than others, what we
Right.
might call stars of the show, because there's just something about them tapping into that experience that, man, they really just pick up that ball and roll with it. So even while you're doing a show, that if you got 20 people on there, you might have 6 or 8 people that just really stand out, and you're constantly evaluating stuff when you're paying attention, and you're looking at all these different people and how they're responding. So even while I'm working on, one skit, you're observing and you're watching people, and you're thinking, okay, for the next skit, this person's going to be really good. I'm going to give this suggestion to this person and
Right.
this suggestion. So it's like you constantly have to kind of live in the present moment.
Absolutely. We actually have another clip that's about a minute long, and I think it was a corporate event that
Yeah.
you were headlining. I don't know, Fernanda, if you can find it.
Yes. Notice how good it feels to play an instrument. Play it hard. Play it with lots of intensity. Everybody appreciates how you're playing these instruments. It's 115 degrees, that sun is beating down. You can feel the sweat dripping down your neck. It's dripping down the front of your neck. It's dripping down your back. It's 120, 125 degrees, 128 degrees. Fan yourselves. You really need to stay cool. Fan yourselves. Fan yourselves. Yeah, fan yourselves. This is going up to 125 degrees. Help the person at your right. Rub some suntan lotion on their back. Rub some suntan lotion on their back. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I was waiting
Yeah.
for somebody to take off their clothes.
You can have like some guy might want to take off his shirt. And you go, oh no.
Yeah.
And those are two kind of easy skits to do up front, because when I talk about doing skits, because when you experience hypnosis and you're doing the show, people are going to go down deeper and deeper as the show progresses. So there are what I would call heavy lifting. There's more heavy lifting that somebody can do towards the end of the show,
Right.
than towards the beginning of the show. So the beginning of the show, you're just keeping the stuff kind of simple. You're allowing them to start to tap into their imagination. So it's like they can imagine that they're playing an instrument. And one of the things about doing a skit like that, especially up front, the instrument skit, because you'll have them start to imagine that they're tuning up an instrument, and that they're playing the instrument. And then gradually, it'll get a little bit sillier, so that they can, you can play the instrument so well you can actually play it with your feet, or you can play the instrument so well you can actually play it with your butt. Now, when you're watching those people, the person that gets up, man, and they're shaking their backside, they're
Right.
wagging their butt to play that instrument. So those are some of the ways that you see, okay, these are the person, this is the person that's standing out. This is the person. And of course, too, since it's like the first get into the show, if I say you can play that instrument so well, you can play that instrument with your butt. Every once in a while, you might have somebody just burst out laughing because it's such kind of an absurd thing for them. They're like, no, we can't buy into this. And you go, okay, perfect. We could dismiss you from the stage. And those are things that you're doing to kind of whittle that group down to the people that are really standing out.
I saw that you actually touched a few of them in the back of their neck or their shoulder, and then they just completely like flopped backwards. So what happened there? What is going on there?
Well, one of the things that you're doing is you're creating what we would call an anchor. So, when you hear the hypnotist say the word sleep and they snap their finger, you're creating that anchor with them in their mind, that they're knowing that this is what it means, to sleep. So, and especially something like that, when I'm doing the music is loud, the audience is laughing. So in that particular thing, you want to get right behind, the people, and, just, as I'm tapping them on the shoulder individually, to let them sleep. Because what I'll do with that skit is, I'll leave the people that are really, just going at it and really energetic and really energized. And then I'll go through and I just one by one tell everybody to sleep, and then leave that one last person that's just really animated. So it's just a matter of just coming up behind them. They're already anchored to the word sleep. They know what the sleep word means. So I can just get right behind them and tap them on the shoulder and say sleep, and they go right down.
Do you see anyone on a one-to-one basis? Do you have a clientele of sorts?
I was doing that early on, and it wasn't my passion to do one-on-one, as I was finding I could reach way more people by doing what I was doing out on YouTube. What wound up happening, though, is that my wife also went on and certified in hypnosis.
Amazing.
So she'll do one-on-one consultations with people.
So in your YouTube channel, you receive what they call the YouTube Silver Play Button Award. What is that all about?
With YouTube, when you hit 100,000 subscribers, they will send you a plaque. It's a silver plaque with a YouTube play button on it. So it's the Silver Play Button Award that says, "This is to John Moyer for 100,000 subscribers." Of course, the next level is 1 million. So that's the gold play button. It might take me a couple more years to get to that point, but I'm working on it.
You actually have 255,000.
Okay, 255,000.
Yeah, I checked this morning.
It's so funny because early on, you're just constantly looking, because the first kind of milestone is 1,000 subscribers, to get monetized, and then the second level is like 10,000 to get access to other features that that you're able on YouTube, and then the next thing beyond that is 100,000. So you're constantly looking, like, did I hit that 1,000? Oh, I hit the 10,000. And now it's just the point where I'm like, oh, this is how many I have? Okay, I wasn't really paying attention.
No, I get it. I'm on many different platforms, and I have to say for myself, YouTube is probably the hardest platform for me to grow. Maybe it's just because I have podcasts on there. Maybe, in order to grow, I need to take another approach. But I find it very challenging, so kudos to you.
Well, and for your YouTube channel, is that specifically just podcasts, or you try to put other content on there as well?
I do have a little bit in shorts now, because now YouTube has a shorts feature. So I'm using some of my TikTok. I'm repurposing some of my TikTok, but the watermark is not on there. So it sort of seems like from the source.
Yeah.
And they're like really from 12 to 15 seconds long. But they don't get much traction. So I find it very challenging. Whereas on on TikTok, I've done very well with the same content.
Yeah.
So it's
and that's
tricky.
the thing about YouTube is because early on I was trying to do kind of a combination of stuff. I would have videos from my shows, and then I would have video or the long form content of the hypnosis programs that I was doing. But YouTube wants to know specifically what a channel is about, so it's all about just So I just took down all of my, any videos that I had of my stage hypnosis show on YouTube. Some of them are on my website, and I just make my YouTube channel now about this one thing. And of course, I said it's about that long form content. So I could create a 15-minute video, but not get any traction because YouTube is gearing my channel towards people that want long form content, which is why I'm going to create a specific channel with shorter content. Yeah, it's just all about YouTube understanding this is exactly what this is about, and we know to push that out to people.
That's so interesting. I didn't even know that, that you could have an 8-hour piece of content on YouTube, and that in fact that the YouTube prefers that. And I guess it helps the algorithm as well. So that's really fascinating. So
yeah.
How do you feel that meditation and hypnosis has cleaned up your life?
It cleaned up well, the thing is we're conditioned. Our brains operate based on patterns. We're looking for patterns in our life. And then the brain will operate accordingly. So I was in this pattern of, where I looked at dysfunction as a good thing in my personal life so I could have fodder for what I was doing on stage. And not to mention that, there were other things that I wasn't even really consciously aware of. But just struggling in, relationships, and at the time struggling, as a single parent, financially, and just going, how is this going to change? Because I wasn't happy. I was angry, and I was bitter, and I was jaded. And so I was able to go into those patterns of my subconscious mind and just pull the plug on the connections that I had, the things that I was operating from, and then just rewire those with much more positive, healthier connections that was just changed how I was feeling, changing how I was responding to things in my life, changing, what I was looking at in my life. And that's, that's what did it all. And all of a sudden I realized I'm calmer, I'm at more peace, I'm happier, and I had a much more productive, much more energized outlook on life. And, shifting that, is what made the difference. And one of the things that I tell people is like, okay, you say, all right, there's things that I don't use the word need, but I always like the word, deserve. There's things that I deserve in my life, or there are things, instead of the word want, I use the word prefer. So people look around at areas of their life that they're not happy about, and they prefer things to be different. And I've often said, how many times have you've been to a seminar, or you've seen a movie, or you read a book, or something that says, this makes so much sense, I need to do this in my life. If I apply this, it'll make all the difference. And, a few days later, a week later, you're back to the same old patterns of behavior again. And that's because when we see something that resonates with us, consciously, it resonates with us. Consciously, our mind goes, yes, this makes sense. Subconsciously, though, the subconscious mind goes, of course this makes sense for everybody else and not for us, because nothing works out for us. We can't do anything right. We can't be successful. We've tried this or we've done that, and we fail every single time, so why even bother? That's why it's so important to make that change in the subconscious mind. Because the reality of it is the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not. That's what's so interesting about the subconscious mind. So the conscious mind is able to analyze everything. The conscious mind goes, this is not real. Like you're watching a movie, and let's say it's a scary movie or a horror movie or thriller, whatever, and you can feel, those emotions inside of you. Maybe you're a little tense. You have a physiological response to watching this movie. Now, consciously, you go, this is only a movie. Subconsciously, where all that physiological response is coming from, the subconscious mind doesn't know that you're watching a movie. The subconscious mind just sees that stimuli and interprets it. So the subconscious mind thinks it's real. And therefore, because the subconscious mind thinks it's real, we have a tangible physiological and emotional response to that. So when it comes to terms of hypnosis, so if the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real, what's not, so you give the subconscious mind suggestion that we are somebody that prefers to eat right. We're somebody that prefers to go to the gym every day. We're somebody that focuses on our health. And the subconscious mind goes, okay, that's who we are. This is real. So this is how we're going to respond. And then you have the correlating physiological and behavioral and emotional responses that are aligned with those suggestions.
Some of what you said earlier, it sounded very similar to a couple of years ago, it was quite big, the law of attraction, The Secret. Is there a correlation to what you're saying and that?
Now, what's so interesting about that is I always say that there's two types of people. There's Newtonian physics people who believe that in order to have something happen, you have to, matter has to interact with matter, right? There's opposite reaction, and so you have to physically interact with something to make a difference. You physically have to do something. And then the other group of people are, the law of attraction people, or the quantum physics people that subscribe to the realization that everything is energy. And, physical matter in a way is really kind of an illusion, because if you go down on a quantum level, it is just energy.
Right.
So when it comes to hypnosis, it's going to benefit both people, because if you're a Newtonian physics person, okay, you're going to change your thinking, change your emotions, and change your behavior so you can go out and physically interact with the world around you to make a difference. Now, if you're a law of attraction person, the interesting thing about the subconscious mind is consciously we're thinking, if you put it in terms of computer terms, the conscious mind processes about 7 to 10 bits of information per second. The subconscious mind is processing somewhere around 20 million bits of information per second. So there's a lot more things happening on the subconscious level than there is on a conscious level. So if the subconscious mind is operating that much, if you're able to make those new connections and rewire that subconscious mind, then you're going to feel different. And that energy is can be considered to be quantifiably measured out into the world around you, and influence physical matter via the energy. Now, the interesting thing, and I just found this out recently, I didn't even realize this, but the pineal gland, we have a pineal gland in, at this kind of the seat of our brain.
I did not know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yes, go on.
So the third eye, as it's called, right there.
Okay.
So the pineal gland actually has calcite crystals in it that have piezoelectric properties that are akin to a transmitter, a radio, that are, can literally pick up and broadcast just like a radio can. And it's like when you're watching a flock of birds fly and they all are able to immediately move. Well, it's kind of the same. They've got that going on there. So the human brain has this pineal gland that we now know has these properties that can pick up and receive information. I mean, if you go back 100 years ago and you talked about, cell phones, it was science fiction. It was an absurd concept. But around us, there are radio signals, there are television signals, or radio signals, or Wi-Fi, computer, whatever the case may be. Well, biologically, that same process is happening with us. And if you look at, I could go down this whole rabbit hole talking about.
No, that's okay. I'm fascinated with it.
But if you look at, like, let's say quantum entanglement. I don't know how familiar with the quantum entanglement, but
I am not.
They have it's now proven that if you take subatomic particles and you entangle them, and they're separated, you could have one on one side of the planet and one on the other side of the planet. And the way you interact with one over here is going to affect the behavior of the subatomic particle on the other side of the planet. Now, science still has absolutely no idea how this works, but they know that it's a fact, and they know that it happens. So if you think about it, as human beings, we are all entangled particles, right? We've all come from the same place.
Right.
So we're all these entangled particles, and so what's not to say that the influence from one person over here is resonating and affecting a situation with somebody else. And I know a lot of people they poo-poo that, and it's it's foo-foo or whatever. And to me, it's not some spiritual magic. It's quantum physics. And when you start and begin to think from that perspective, and that's one of the things, especially a lot of the themes with my hypnosis programs, and they're geared towards whether you're a Newtonian physics person or a quantum physics law of attraction person. But when we come from that place where we get out of our mind and stop coming from a place of expectations or judgments, where we go, man, this has to happen in order for me to feel good, or things have to be this way and then I can feel good, or this person has to do this and behave this way in order for me to feel good. If you let that go, you let go of the parameters and the judgment and the expectation, and you resonate from a place of peace and confidence, just knowing, hey, it's all going to be good. You become really surprised at how things can start to work out and show up that way.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I'm thinking of magnets. I'm thinking of even how sometimes we have a feeling about things, and we think, and where we just know something's going to happen, or we walk into a room and we feel sort of the negative energy. I mean, that explains what you just said. Explains a lot. And some people are more tuned into that than other people.
Yeah. And the thing is that when I talk about law of attraction, the people are vision board. We're going to put this picture of a car up, or we're going to, the thing that I always tell people is when you're looking for an outcome, let go of the imagery, let go of the visual, focus on the emotional state, how a situation feels to you, because that's really what we're looking for. We're all looking for an emotional state. So it's like, why does somebody go out and buy a new car? So we can feel secure, so that we can know when we get in the car and turn the key, it's going to be able to get us to work, and we're not going to be broken down on the side of the road. So I always tell people, just let go of thinking and just focus on that emotional state. That's the energy that resonates. That's what other energy is able to pick up on and understand. So one of the things that I say is that circumstances don't matter. It's our emotional state of being that matters. And the story that I love to tell about that is about going on to a year and a half ago, my wife and I, we bought a new house. We wanted to get out of my bachelor pad and get into a bigger place, a house. So, and now we live in Utah, which is one of the craziest real estate markets in the country, especially the town where I live in. The town that I live in, it's been branded the Silicon Slopes because we have a lot of tech companies that have moved here. So 20 years ago when I moved here, there was nothing but farmland. I mean, like the nearest Walmart was like 25 minutes away. And now, Adobe's got headquarters here, Ancestry's got headquarters, all these tech, it's just exploded. The growth's ridiculous. So we got looking for a house, and I let go of what I was thinking that the house had to look like, what the house had to have, and I just focused on how do I want to feel in this house? How does the house make me feel? So we go out, put an offer on we see the first house, we go, oh my gosh, this is great. We put an offer on the house, and of course, the joke is we've got all these people moving from California, don't California my Utah, right? But we got these people that are coming in, they, and they're dropping, they had this two-bedroom house in California that they sold for $1 million, and now they're able to come and, buy a property here. So, somebody, beat us out because there was bidding, cash offer, and we're, oh man, we didn't get this house. And I say to my kids, I go, it's okay. Everything's going to work out ideally. The universe is going to show up exactly the way. So we go see the second house. Fall in love with the second house. The view was unbelievable. It was up on the mountain, looked over the whole valley, loved it. Same situation happened. And we're like, oh my gosh. And then we go see the house that we're in now. And as soon as we walked in, we were like, oh my gosh, this has the feeling, this has the things that we're looking for. But I say to the real estate agent, I go, are there any other offers on the house? He goes, no, it's been on the market for 7 days. There's been no offers. Completely unheard of for the time. So the other houses, we were having to come in over asking price. This house, we came in at asking price, got it right away. And it was like amazing because it was nothing that we ever would have expected, but it was like this resonated those feelings, and I let go of the expectation and the judgment of what I think, and we wound up coming into a house in an area that I thought, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go live out on the west side. That's too far. And then it's like, I got out here. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. It's beautiful. So it showed up perfectly, aligned with, the energy that I was putting out there once I let go of thinking it's got to have this and this and this and this and this. And then it had everything and more.
Unbelievable. No, that makes an awful lot of sense. Now, we have a question that we ask every guest for this season.
Okay.
So, if you could turn back the time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Well, there is a theory that there is no linear time, that all points of reality are all happening at the same time.
You're the wrong person to ask.
So I actually have meditations that I've done where I go back and, tell myself.
Okay.
If I would go back, well, now here's the thing.
Okay.
I've thought about this because looking at every event that's happened in my life, it's brought me to a place where I feel like I am living in the sweet spot, where I'm completely fulfilled professionally. My kids, my wife, my stepkids. I mean, it took me 3 marriages, but the third one was like, this is it. This
Third time's a charm. Yeah.
It's wonderful. So there is part of me that thinks, well, if I go back and tell my 18-year-old self, then it might screw up this timeline.
Right.
But then if you come from the idea that there's the multiverse and parallel realities,
right.
I could stay in this timeline, but give my 18-year-old self some information that would influence another timeline. I might say, don't go to BYU, don't go on a Mormon mission. Though I have nothing against the Mormon church, that was actually a good experience. Well, it was a life learning experience for me. I might say, don't marry the first wife. I would say that, but
right.
But if I had to look at not changing, because you think, well, I'm not going to listen to myself. I would go back and tell my 18-year-old self, learn to understand meditation, learn to understand some of these, these Eastern philosophies, because there's way more there. Because the funny thing is my mom's sister, my aunt growing up, we all thought that she was like the wacko woo-woo lunatic because she was into all these, weird, new age philosophies and stuff.
Right.
And I look back now and I go, my aunt got it. She got it. And I regret the fact that I didn't, spend that time talking to her. So I'd probably tell my 18-year-old self, go talk to Aunt Ann some more. She's got a few things to teach you.
That's a good one. No, absolutely. And we talk about the timeline continuum, and God knows how many Star Trek episodes I've watched.
I know.
That talk about, and they still do, even the new Star Trek episodes talk about that. I think we're all fascinated with time travel.
We're fascinated by time travel, and we're fascinated by this idea of the multiverse.
Right. Yes, that as well.
And I think there's something there.
You could be right.
But one of the meditations that I do is, having somebody go to a previous point in their life, and if you see yourself changing that moment in your life, even if it's in the mind, right? So if because the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not. So if you have somebody that had a traumatizing situation earlier, or something that they regret, or whatever negative emotion is surrounded by that, you can go into the mind. And you can create that in the subconscious mind and eliminate that, and then, be able to take those qualities that you would prefer to have now versus, whatever negative situation, that you went through. You can. So I kind of call that a time traveling meditation.
Yeah. No, and I see what you're saying. So, if someone wants to get in contact with you, if they want to hire you to do a performance, how would they go about doing that?
Everything, if you go to my website, johnmoyer.com,
Okay.
That's got all the portals to get me into my social media. But the big place to find me is on YouTube. Just look up John Moyer Hypnosis on YouTube, and you can find me there. And it's pretty obvious. There's really 2 John Moyers. There's me, and then there's John Moyer, who is the bass player from the heavy metal band Disturbed.
Oh my goodness, you're right. Okay.
You're right. And
It just hit me.
And
Okay.
what's so funny about that, it was like a couple of months ago, I looked down at Twitter and I get this notification that says, George Lopez mentioned you in a tweet. And I'm like, George Lopez mentioned
How
me in a
does he
tweet.
know you?
So I open it up and sure enough, it is the George Lopez, comedian
Right.
George Lopez.
Right,
And he
right,
wrote,
I know
John
you.
Moyer about to take the stage. Well, it wasn't me. He apparently was at some venue where
Right.
John Moyer, the bassist, was going to come out. And I said, George, thanks for the shout out. I
No,
appreciate it. But
seriously.
you're getting us confused. But yeah, I'm not the one with the long hair playing the bass.
I hear you. Okay. So guys, you can contact him via his YouTube channel. We have it posted right here. And we also have it in our description on our YouTube channels as well, all your links. Thank you so much, John. You have been amazing. I've learned so much, and I'm going to be listening to many of your posts that you have up because they're actually quite amazing, I have to say.
Yeah,
I started
appreciate
listening
that.
to them, and
Just think
so
of me
well
coming
done.
up behind you going, sleep.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Esther. I appreciate it.
Absolutely my pleasure. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back June 2nd with independent filmmaker, actor, writer, and director, Mr. John Anthony. And for now, we thank you for tuning in. Take care.